my friends and future colleagues. Welcome to Law Talkie. We present you the most interesting talks with the most interesting people from the legal industry. I am Muskan Narang, your host for today. And we are recording this session on the 70th Independence Day of India. And we have brought today a very special guest with you for Advocate Jayant Bhatt. He is someone who is practically a celebrity of the legal field. Literally everybody knows him. And we have seen a lot of webinars of his coming down in this lockdown. So he is an independent litigator based in New Delhi. He holds a dual Master of Law from New York University and National University of Singapore. He is also a member of the prestigious Supreme Court of India Bar Association and Delhi High Court Bar Association. He has a wide array of experiences, from working at an international law firm to representing governmental and non-governmental bodies, multinationals, financial institutions, and individuals in an array of matters. So we are really happy to have you on the show, sir, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
Thank you so much for having Muskan and Law Talkies for this wonderful initiative. First of all, a very happy Independence Day to all of us. It's indeed a great day, and I hope I'm not saying anything which should be curbing our fundamental rights or freedom to speech. So that will be the idea, with the interview going forward.
No, sir. I have seen a lot of your webinars. I'm practically a fan of yours because, seeing you on so many platforms and so articulate, I've never seen a person so articulate and so upfront with people. I remember the first webinar I saw of you was in Hindi, and it was related to law and everything. There was a ma'am also, I'm sorry, I don't remember her name, but she was there, and you guys were talking about poetry and how Hindi is a significance of Hindi and all. I was really impressed by how candid you are and how straightforward you are. So, sir, I'm really happy to have you on my own show today here. So I was really interested that you have studied in UK and you have studied in India, and you have done really like a lot of international work also. So how was your studying from international to India? Like, how was your whole range of law studying?
Look, my range of studies has been phenomenal, I would say. From starting my education from a government school, so as to say, then going to a convent, and then coming to Delhi later because my father was in paramilitary. I came to Delhi when I was in class 7th. And after that, I did my law school from Delhi, from Amity Law School in IP University. And thereafter, I ended up doing my 2 masters from, it was a joint program called NYU at NUS, when New York University collaborated with the National University of Singapore to give a dual program in just 1 year. So that's how it happened. And then after that, I ended up working for a British law firm in Dubai. So the journey has been extremely, I would say, phenomenal, with lots of ups and downs in life, and a lot of steep learning curves. So I would say I've had a lot to learn throughout the journey, and I would not say only one particular academic course or academic degree or academic institution has formed me. I think it has been a collective effort of so many people in my life, and so many teachers, whom I've experienced from my kindergarten till my masters, and even today. We learn from each other and from people. So everybody's a teacher in their own way, but we don't realize it. Mm-hmm. So just to sum it up, I would say that the journey has been fun, and I look forward to learning from all of you, especially the youth, because you have so much to teach us.
Sir, actually, I was thinking that your law journey has been really exciting, like the studying law part, from going from India to somewhere else, and also that you said that you went from Amity to, these places, New York and Singapore course. So it's really interesting to know. So how were you as a law student when it came to studying?
So I have always been a very diligent student. I would not say I was a backbencher. I was a middle bencher, not a front bencher either. I always had this concept of work-life balance, So the idea was to have fun and to study. That was that. But studying in India is a little different from studying abroad, because at least my experience with both NYU and NUS was, there is no rote learning. Ratta nahi karate aapko. They are more like hands-on approach. They make you think. They make you think very, clinically, I would say, as to how to take on things in a very real-world scenario also. And the professor are very hands-on with the practical experiences. So I think that is something I took away from that learning, and thereafter when I started my career with a British law firm, one thing I realized about the Brits was they're very particular about their work life. So they would work very hard, and when the weekend would arrive, they would party harder.
Right.
So that has been also my approach. Even to date, I tell my office colleagues and my office staff people that look, don't work for more than 8 to 10 hours, and that need shouldn't arrive, God willing, and you should be able to smartly do your work. The idea is everybody has 24 hours. You don't have 25, I don't have 23. So we have to accomplish whatever we have to in a limited span of time. And if you have to grow as a lawyer, I think it's very important to grow your other hobbies also. It may be reading, dancing, singing, just watching movies, even sleeping, to get re-energized, just or gardening for that matter, or traveling, cultivate them. Don't be your own prisoner. And I think that's very important, that I've learned either through my education between different continents, or my work experiences between abroad and now, working in India. But the idea is, our work culture typically is, or our education system is, work hard, keep working harder throughout your life.
Right.
If there are 24 hours, show your boss that you can work for 26 hours. I unfortunately do not have that mindset. I want people to be happy, because happy people make happy employees.
Exactly, sir. So actually, there is a concept in India which says that all work and no play. And so everybody in India, so I can't imagine, sir, that people are actually flexible with you when you come to this. That I don't think people are really flexible when it comes to that. Let's work for these particular hours and then let's enjoy in the whatever time that we have free for yourself. So, sir, do you have any hobbies except law? Like anything that you do except law?
So I watch a lot of television, because and television, I don't mean the idiot box, which is the cable TV or the news channels. I would rather say the OTTs, because that gives you enough choices to choose what you have to watch. So in my spare time, I like watching a lot of interesting series and serials, which are either prompted by the OTTs themselves, based on what I watched previously, because they're spying on us. Yeah. Or in the alternative, my lawyer colleagues and my interns and my family members and my friends, they suggest me something to watch that they have found interesting, and I take a cue from their binge watching, and I like to watch, because I think there's so much to learn. As I said, as a lawyer, you forget that you're also a human being, and you may watch a musical show, you may watch a spy series, you may watch a thriller, you may watch a criminal series, you can just watch a drama. There is so much available online, especially in COVID times. When you're homebound, I think OTT has been a real game changer. And you don't have to now travel miles to learn something. If you want to learn something, these OTT platforms and YouTube and other good platforms are a great teacher and a mentor.
Right. So what have you been watching recently on any OTT platform?
Today I started watching this Bandits on Amazon Prime. It has, I think, Mr. Nasiruddin Shah and two youngcomers. And I just finished episode 2 before plugging into your interview.
Okay.
And at least what it taught me about how traditional, musical Guru Shishya Parampara has been going on in our country. And it has been beautifully depicted, and a lot of classical music in it. This is something I also enjoy. I can't sing, but I enjoy people who can, sing very well. So it is about a Gharana musician family and a lady singer who is a pop diva. So they have shown a contrast, and I'm just on episode 2. I think it is 10 episodes. So I think I should be done by tonight in my binge watching spree.
Okay. So there is no surprise that people are actually relating to you a lot, and law students love hearing you, because you are a person who is with us there. So I think you are very much in sync with all that is happening right now. Also, because you are very active on social media and everything, I'd like to ask you that what is the importance of social media in being in the law field, and making your online presence basically.
Right. So look, I came to LinkedIn 2 years ago, and that was only because I was prompted by two of my then recently hired lawyers in my chamber, who were my previous interns, in fact. And they said, look, people are hearing about you. They can read your internship review on, internship websites, but they don't know who you are. Why don't you have a LinkedIn profile? And I just told them, look, I don't find a use of LinkedIn. And now in hindsight, I realize how wrong was I. So they made my LinkedIn profile 2 years ago. I remember it was June 2018. So one of my, colleague, he made a profile for me, and he said, look, I made you profile. You can change the password, as per your convenience. And I think since then it has been a point of no return for me, because I found LinkedIn to be a very engaging platform. I'm not on Twitter. I don't have a YouTube channel yet, though I'm planning, maybe to start something new and fresh. Not just for law graduates, but for people in general, because I think knowledge should be shared in a way that it creates a positive awareness. So I think I'm now starting to be a little more engaging on Instagram also, but LinkedIn is my go-to platform because I also follow a few people on LinkedIn who I find really engaging and informative. And unlike Twitter, where you can be misconstrued, or just as I in my morning post today, about Mr. Bhushan who got
Right.
convicted for contempt. 160 characters sometimes don't do justice to a thought process, and that can be either taken rightly or wrongly, and that's a larger debate to another extent altogether. But LinkedIn is a platform where you can write an article, where you can post yourself, and I would say people are a little less, I would say they don't rebuke so much more as they do you on YouTube or maybe Instagram or Twitter. So LinkedIn is a more educated lot, and that's what I like about LinkedIn. You can put your thought across there. And in our line of work, lawyers, we have a little bit of formality with each other. It's a very formal profession. The mutual respect that goes amongst peers, amongst colleagues, amongst the bar and the bench. And that is something, I've always looked up to and has revered, in my line of work and in my 13 years of the professional career that I've had so far. So that is something, I relate to with LinkedIn. When I see a lot of young people, older generation people commenting on my posts, and they're free to comment what they like, and I normally do not comment on my post because then there is no end to being a ninja or a keyboard ninja, so as to say.
Right.
You'll keep typing and you'll try to validate yourself.
Exactly.
So my idea is, if I have a thought which I think is worth sharing without creating too much commotion, I put it there. And whatever post I post, I edit it a lot before finally posting it. So there was this incident where, one gentleman asked me, said, do you have a ghostwriter for you or a person who does the script for you? I'm like, look, I don't have that much money that I can engage, such bright people. So the next best thing is me, that I have to, put in my hard work and labor. And it really helps when you're putting your thought either on your phone or on your computer. I'm not a great writer or a great expressor of thoughts, so as to say, but whatever ability I have to express through my social media platforms, so as to say, I do that on LinkedIn, and at times I find it extremely satisfying, and at times I find it frustrating because sometimes I think people are too quick to comment without reading my earlier post, because people will today tell you that what do you think about that, what do you think about that. My only urge to people who will be hearing this interview later, especially youth and law students and even people from civil society, is that please read all my posts properly, read them one by one, don't jump into conclusion. And that is what the problem in society today is. We are too quick to give judgments. We are not judges, and lawyers tend to fight and argue a lot.
Exactly.
So my approach is withdraw, don't argue, put your thought across. If you have a good thought, feel free to put it on your profile. Don't try to blame me. Don't try to, punch me. I'm not a punching bag. I'm just a person putting a normal thought out there. I have as much fundamental right as you have. So I'm not going to get down to a level with any young person or an old person saying you are right or I am wrong or any of the sort, because everybody is a creature of their own lifestyle and their walk of life. And I don't know what they've gone through, so it's only fair that I don't comment.
Exactly. So, sir, basically people have to take the social media seriously now because it's all about socializing. It's not about judging each other or, it's just about putting your thoughts forward and, letting ourselves express ourselves. So I really agree with you, sir. So basically we talked about social media right now. I was curious that, do you think networking plays any part in being successful in this field or any other field? And
I
how
think in
has
all
it
the
helped you?
fields. Look, networking, I think is the foremost thing that people don't realize. And I'll tell you what happens in our profession. As I said, in India, we lack a work-life balance. And because when we lack a work-life balance, people get in the habit of appeasing or in appeasement of their immediate seniors or their partners or their bosses. And that's fine. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. But if you spend all your life appeasing other people, when will you appease yourself? And that appeasement comes with meeting new people, with meeting different people. And that is what networking and socializing is practically all about, right? So if I'll put it this way. So when we talk of social media, if I was to only put one post every single day, cribbing, it will have a diminishing value effect. It's something like the economics principle. If you eat the 5-star chocolate the first time, and if you eat the 10th time, it has a diminishing market value. Utility goes down. Similarly, if as a lawyer you are working in a chamber, and if you're only surrounded by those 5 people, because the theory goes, the 5 most people that you interact with or spend your time most with on a day-to-day basis, they impact you or your personality. Right. So idea is meet different people. And that's why I say, I watch a lot of TV, I watch a lot of serials, because I don't want to be stuck to a particular regimen or a particular type of series, because look, we have been blessed to be born as human beings. And when we have been blessed with this brain, and as lawyers, we have to be dealing with different ideas. So, that's what my Instagram tagline says, dealing with ideas. I was about to say peddling with ideas, but that will be bordering the narcotics thing. So I said dealing with ideas.
Right.
So when you have to deal with ideas, you have to network, you have to meet people. So I encourage all my staff, my lawyers, my interns, that look, when you're working with me, please go out, and especially interns who are not from Delhi, go out, explore Delhi, go to different restaurants, meet other people, meet people from fashion, economics, commerce, science. It's an oyster, and that is something I think which not too many people encourage for the reasons best known to them. I'm not going to comment on anybody's practice or office, and that's not my domain. But if they can, then they must at least encourage the young people to go out more, to interact more, because that eventually helps in broadening your horizon. So if today an intern or a lawyer comes to me from my office and say, look, I watched this nice serial today, or I met this nice gentleman or lady who was from this field and they told me something new, that will help you. And not everything is about arguing your cases in the court. As lawyer, it's also about knowledge accumulation. If you gain knowledge on a daily basis, you become a new person. So I think that's the whole idea, So yes, thumbs up to networking and social networking. You must do it. Don't shy away from it. It takes a lot of time because people are too comfortable in their own shell. They are cocooned. So वो नहीं होना चाहिए. थोड़ा सा, it requires a little effort. तो वो एफर्ट कीजिए, मैं कहता हूँ, और उस एफर्ट के लिए थोड़ी सी हिम्मत और हौसला चाहिए. तो वो हम सब में होता है. आई थिंक उसको थोड़ा सा राइट डायरेक्शन देने की जरूरत होती है.
Right, sir. So as you said that the world is an oyster for you, and so how was it for you to transition from being in India to being abroad?
Wasn't very difficult. Look, you are only meeting people. You are not meeting robots, right? So as I said, I've always been open to learning. When I was doing my master's, we had a batch of 44 people in this program, NYU NUS, at least for the NYU batch. And then when the NUS program started, we had more students coming in. But in a batch of 44 people, we are 5 people from India, and rest everybody was from a different continent and a country. Okay. So that taught me, a lot of insights into different cultures, people, their thought processes. And because I was, one of the youngest people in my batch, it gave me a perspective, because the eldest person in my batch was a 44-year-old Canadian lady who had taken a year sabbatical to come to this program. I was 23 back then, maybe, if I'm not wrong in my maths. So, there was a 20-year age gap between the youngest student in the batch to the most experienced person. And everybody has had some type of work experience except me. Because in my case, the difference in my LLB and my LLM was just one day. So on 30th April, I was getting my Viva. 1st May, I was on my flight. 2nd May, my master started. Because it was the only program, as I said, in the world, which was new, 2 degrees at one go. Normally, all the master starts in September. My program started in May. So I had no time. But having said that, I had a lot to learn from different people, their cultures, their commitment about law, their love for law. And I think I still carry that experience with me.
Right. So it was not much different. So like, would you recommend people in India, like law students like me, to go ahead and go for any LLM and everything abroad?
Absolutely. But don't do it for getting a job. That's what I always tell people. It's an academic degree. It's a great experience. Yes, it's a money burner. If you're not getting a scholarship, you will end up either taking a loan, or your family will end up spending a lot on you. And that's fine. Families are brought up in a good manner so far. So, you can burn a little more hole in their pocket if they allow. I think the experience is fantastic, because not only do you meet people, you travel a lot. The idea is also to travel in a country or a continent where you're going to. You backpack, you explore the world. And when you're young, the energy levels are high. So you can have more traction to your efforts. And I think as you grow older, at least physically, your body, the difference always, remains. I'm not saying I'm very old, but 10 years ago, I was definitely younger, right? So in your 20s, you are much more eager to go and explore, the world, as you are. And when you progressively, start aging, and, then perspective changes, things change, and it becomes a little difficult to then take a call. Should you be leaving your practice or whatever you are doing to, then go for a master or switch a country or a continent? And people do take that call. But I think to each his own. You have to take your own call when you want to do masters. But as I said, at the sake of repeating myself, please do not do it for money or for job.
Yeah. So it's easier for a person who is younger to uproot their life and go abroad, but then it's going to be difficult if you are older than that. So we have talked about going from India to abroad. What about going from abroad and coming back to India? How was your transition then? Were you able to easily adjust back to India and all?
Yes, look, my roots are here. I was born and brought up here. So I would not say there was a substantial difference. I was only away from India for 3 years, 1 year of master's and almost 2.5 years of working. So in 3 and 3.5 years, the only thing I managed to realize when I came back to Delhi is that the traffic had increased manifold. Almost everybody was having a car or a two-wheeler, much more than when I had left the country. So the traffic had phenomenally increased. New malls had come up, and I think things had become very expensive in Delhi. Because I remember when I was in Dubai, and even when I was traveling the world, if I would be ordering an iced tea in Indian currency, I would say if in abroad I would get an iced tea for like $50 or $80. In India, mall was selling for $120.
Okay.
And I'm like, this is just criminal. I mean, it's so expensive. And as a young lawyer, as a young person who wants to travel the world, Delhi itself will rip you off. So how do you make ends meet? It's difficult.
Right.
But luckily, if your family is here and if you have a basic support, it helps. But I said India has changed for good. And I'm always proud of being an Indian. And my idea was always to come back and have my practice here. So I don't think the transition has changed me that much, except the experiences which I've had abroad have enriched me, have made me a better person.
Okay. So did you work at a law firm there once you were there for 2 years?
Yes, I was working with Clyde & Co. And I was in the disputes team. And it was a wonderful experience because, again, my team comprised of, different lawyers from different countries, primarily common law. So we had lawyers from Canada, obviously from Britain, because, it was a British law firm, from Lebanon, from Sri Lanka, from India, you name it, So it was a great exposure because, again, if you work with the different lawyers from different jurisdictions, it gives you a different bent of mind, and the learning curve is amazing.
So how has your mentorship been? Do you think that mentorship is really important for a person to grow in this field? And how about your mentorship?
Look, I think it's extremely crucial, and mentorship is something which I would say is evading our industry by and large. Whether it be a law firm, whether it be a law office. In hindsight, I think there are a few reasons for that. One, when you're looking for a mentor, you're looking for a much more experienced person. So let's say if you're starting out this year in 2020, and if let's say you're 23 years old, if you're working under a person who's 30-year-old or 40 or 50-year-old, they have all different set of life challenges. They are busy in their practices. They have a lot of business challenges that they have to, overcome and conquer. They have their practices to run. They have plans, their billings, and so on and so forth. But should that mean that you'll be ignoring people who have joined your team? I don't think that's the right thing to do. And that's why I personally, try to take as much time to at least talk to my staff, my interns, my lawyer colleagues in office, and even other people, by and large, because if you won't guide them, then who will? And that becomes a question. I remember my first day in law firm, and as time progressed, though I had a good experience, but there was no mentorship as such. And even when I came back to India, I worked with different seniors, but I would say the mentorship concept is missing because one, if you're working with a lawyer, they are busy preparing for the matter the next day. They have files, they have meetings. So the atmosphere becomes too professional and too formal. Okay. And somewhere, I think the idea of learning and teaching a young person, slowly withers away. And I think that's wrong, because you should never forget that when you started your career, you were at the same place. You wanted answers. You wanted some guidance. Right. You wanted somebody to, just basically not handhold you, but at least point you in the right direction, and saying, look, if I don't know this, go to that person and they will help you out. Okay. So that I think should be done by people as much as possible, because हिंदी में कहावत है कि ज्ञान बांटने से ज्ञान बढ़ता है, घटता नहीं है कभी. So it's something like this. So I'm not going to lose by helping some other person, and that is my mantra. मतलब मेरी जेब से क्या जा रहा है. And one of my senior Nitish sir used to tell me कि बेटा तुम्हारी किस्मत तुमसे कोई नहीं चुरा सकता. तो ये बड़ी अच्छी बात कहते थे. आप जो भी कर लें, किस्मत आपके हमेशा आपके साथ रहेगी. तो अगर आपकी किस्मत बुलंद है, तो nobody is going to take it away from you.
बिल्कुल सर.
So mentorship hands-on, you must do it even at a law school level. If you are in your 5th year, let's say, you must help your people from 1st to 4th year. The moment you enter the profession, and at least, I would say the bar associations and bar councils are, very, very active when it comes to helping people and guiding them. So we have robust bar association bodies. We have good lawyers in the industry to help people. But I hope it becomes a culture in the longer run, where I would not say Guru Shishya Parampara strictly speaking, but a mentor-mentee relationship would definitely help our youth, and that's the culture that we must build going forward.
Exactly. So especially for first generation lawyers, it's very important to have a mentor, because there is nobody to tell you which actually is the right way. You are actually trying to make a path for yourself. So you need somebody who's going to, at least tell you which is the right direction. So sir, who would you say is your mentor or was your mentor throughout your journey?
Look, as I said, I worked in 4 different offices before going independent. And being a first generation, I knew for a fact, because I had interned in my law school, that in India it's very difficult to get mentorship. So my idea was to work in different offices to gain perspective.
Okay.
So I learned different things from different offices, whether it be my law firm in Dubai, whether it be Mr. Sibul, whether it be Mr. Jadhav or Mr. Hashmi. I learned different traits, from all of them. And I try to imbibe their positives in my practice today. When I try to work, and then again you have your own personality, to hone and develop, and put it to test on a day-to-day basis. So I would say, as I said, everybody has taught me something. It's not just my seniors; it's also my colleagues who were with me at a time when I was a junior lawyer in their chamber. It has been my friends, my family. So everybody has taught me something. I would not say that I'm a self-taught person. It would be extremely wrong on my part to say, take a credit कि मैंने सब कुछ खुद सीख लिया, because कोई भी खुद कभी कुछ नहीं सीखता. We all learn from inferences, and those inferences can be from any of us. Look, right now when I'm talking to you, I'm learning something from you also. Like how enterprising you have been to start your own channel, and I have been planning to do it, but I've not been able to do it. So that also motivates me in a way to maybe take a few pointers from you post this interview, and talk about how to operate on YouTube, and how to go about conducting interviews, how to go about approaching people. So learning, as I say, is a two-way street.
So thank you. You were so kind enough to come to our show, which is newly launched. And so, sir, I was about to ask you that, because you're taking a lot of virtual internships right now, and you also, let a lot of people intern under you. So how are you as a mentor? Or what do you try to do as a mentor?
I think you'll have to ask my interns, they will give you a right feedback, because I'm only going to say good things about me. Not because I'm good, but because I'm downright narcissistic.
Okay. So sir, let's talk about law school, and let's talk about being in the law field itself. So I have seen that people are really cutthroat when it comes to being professional, when it comes to being ahead in this field. So how has your experience been in this field? Because I can see that you are such a person who's really friendly, really open to people, and then it's very easy to approach you. Anybody who wants to approach you can approach you on your LinkedIn or anything like that. So people, when it comes to cutthroat people, and when it comes to competition in this field, or in either being a law student or being actually a practicing advocate, how do you deal with it, and how have you experienced it?
Look, being born in India and being brought up in India, it teaches you how to get along with the competition. I would not say get ahead, because competition is always there. People are always there, either in a herd mentality or in a rat race, or maybe trying to just pull you down, because they get kicks out of it. And it takes some sort of experience and failures in your life to realize, what you have to be as a person. And I think that's a realization which comes not to everybody, but sometimes it comes after few obstacles that you've seen in your life. So I'm not saying I'm competitive, but I would say there is nothing wrong in being ambitious. And when you are ambitious, your ambition should not take over your side of harming somebody else. And that's the difference that we have to realize. What happens in cutthroat competition is you start thinking that only you are right. And that is what is happening on social media today on a lot of handles, because when people comment on a post, with that too quick to comment on their post, they are basically sensing something like a person who's posting is insulting your intelligence. Similarly, when we speak of cutthroat competition, it's the same sense of that ego. And I'm not saying pride, I'm saying ego. When people think, how dare he or she challenge me? So I do not have that concept, because the moment you think that you're going to learn from teaching, or give teaching because you have something to offer, you have to surrender yourself. You have to surrender yourself to learning. And if you have surrendered yourself to learning, then the whole concept of cutthroat goes away. Simple as that. It's as simple. I mean, these are knots in your head. So if the knots are not going to open, they'll always be knotted, in your head, and you'll think, okay, well, only I am right. And it is something like, as I said, challenging and also testing a person time and again. That is what cutthroat competition is all about. So हिंदी में इसकी कहावत है परखना. आप लोगों को परखते रहते हैं because आप चाहते हैं कि उनको टेस्ट करना कि कहाँ तक मैं इसको खदेड़ सकता हूँ. तो I'll sum it up with a उर्दू कपलेट जो परखने के ऊपर है. तो ये कहता है कि परखना मत, परखने में कोई अपना नहीं रहता. परखना मत, परखने में कोई अपना नहीं रहता. कोई भी चेहरा बहुत देर तक आईने में नहीं रहता. जब भी मिलना किसी बड़े आदमी से तो जरा फासले से मिलना, क्योंकि दरिया अगर मिल जाए समंदर से तो दरिया दरिया नहीं रहता. सो बशीर बद्र की ये शायरी है, बहुत फेमस शायर थे हमारे टाइम के, एंड इट हैज 2-3 connotations to it. So by परखना you mean you are testing somebody, so don't test somebody. And as it say, कोई भी चेहरा बहुत देर तक आईने में नहीं रहता, which means we all have a fickle existence on this earth. And we have to realize this. We don't realize this, unfortunately. We are not immortals. So mortality is a truth which people want to shy away from. And then it says कि जब भी मिलना किसी बड़े इंसान से थोड़ा फासले से मिलना, क्योंकि दरिया समंदर से मिल जाए तो दरिया दरिया नहीं रहता. Which means I would not say chamber practice or law firm practice or such, but you cannot be under the shadow of somebody else forever. You will lose your individuality. So to hone your individuality, you have to be your own person. And that is something that we have to realize. So, no cutthroat competition. Please focus on yourself and focus on your positives, and things will pan out for better.
राइट सर आपने एक बहुत खूबसूरत बात करी. तो जैसे हिंदी और इंग्लिश के बीच में लोग बहुत डिस्टिंक्शन करते हैं यहाँ पर. किसी भी फील्ड में लोग कहते हैं कि हिंदी अगर कोई बोल रहा है तो वो इतना सही नहीं मानते उसे, और जो हिंदी में बात करें उसे सुपीरियर मानते हैं कि वो कोई बहुत ही एक्स्ट्रॉर्डिनरी चीज कर रहा है शायद, और लोग आई थिंक उसे ज्यादा सीरियसली भी लेते हैं जो इंग्लिश में बात करता है. तो आप क्या बोलना चाहेंगे इसके बारे में कि इस चीज के बारे में कि हिंदी और इंग्लिश को कितना डिस्टिंक्शन किया जाता है अगर आप प्रैक्टिकली लॉ फील्ड में जाओ तो?
सी मुस्कान, अगेन सेम थिंग. कटथ्रोट की जब हम बात करते हैं तो भाषाओं में कटथ्रोट नहीं हो सकता. भाषा इज अ फॉर्म ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन. मैं इंग्लिश में आपसे बात करूं या अपने आप को हिंदी में या उर्दू में जाहिर करूं, तो मसला ये आ जाता है कि क्या मैंने अपनी बात आप तक ढंग से रखी कि नहीं, और इस चीज को समझने की जरूरत है. तो चाहे मेरी लिंक्डइन की पोस्ट हो जो मैं इंग्लिश में लिखता हूँ, अगर आपसे हिंदी में बात करूं तो क्या मैं सहजता से आपको समझा सकता हूँ अपनी सोच की नहीं, इसकी बहुत जरूरत होती है. तो मैं नहीं समझता कि इंफीरियरिटी सुपीरियरिटी का ये ज्यादा फासला नहीं चाहिए. और चूंकि हमारा जो समाज है वो कैटेगराइज बहुत जल्दी कर देता है, तो मैंने कहा, तो इसी की वजह से वो ईगो और वो परखने वाली बात आ जाती है. जब तक आप किसी को परखेंगे, और सबसे दूसरे को तो बाद में परखते हैं, आप अपने आप को परखते हैं. तो जो हम शब्द सुनते हैं कि इंफीरियरिटी कॉम्प्लेक्स है या सुपीरियरिटी कॉम्प्लेक्स है, कॉम्प्लेक्स में मत रहिए, अपने आप में रहिए, बहुत जरूरी है. तो जब तक इंसान अपने आप में नहीं रहेगा तो बड़ी परेशानी होती है. बशीर बद्र का एक और शेर आपको सुनाऊंगा जो आपके शायद इस चीज को जवाब दे सके, और दरिया से ही वो शेर है कि हम दरिया हैं, हमें अपना हुनर मालूम है. कि हम दरिया हैं, हमें अपना हुनर मालूम है, जहां भी चलेंगे अपना रास्ता बन जाएगा. तो दरिया का हुनर होता है, वो अपना जहां जहां नदी जाएगी ये दरिया जाता है, अपना रास्ता अपना खुद बनाता रहता है. तो आप हिंदी और इंग्लिश और उर्दू या फारसी या फ्रेंच या अरेबिक में भेदभाव ना करें, क्योंकि लैंग्वेज आई थिंक इज द मोस्ट ब्यूटीफुल थिंग. And world over, people speak different languages, and they speak different languages because that's what they bond with. We are born, when we are born in a household, we are communicated with languages which are most easy to either our parents or grandparents or to our people who are employed in a household. So everybody has a value to their expression. So let's respect that value. And that's what even, our constitution teaches us, respecting fundamental rights, and language is a part of fundamental rights, right?
Right. Such a beautiful conversation, sir. I can't imagine that. I didn't even imagine that I would have a conversation like this with you today about everything ranging from law to these things. So, sir, okay, last question is going to be, I'm very curious about it. You have talked a lot about the business of law. So if you'd like to elaborate on what is the business of law and how important it is for somebody to learn who's coming into this field.
Right. Look, I often keep telling people that law is no different from an MBA. This is an MBA that you do without a degree, because by the time you start your practice, you have to understand, look, the profession is noble, and I've absolutely no doubt about that. But having said that, you have to know the business dynamics of how to run your offices, whether it be a law firm, whether it be a chamber, whether you're working in-house, everything finally boils down to billing. And when I say billing, you have to have a clientele, you have to have a source of income. And that income you just don't require for yourself and running your household chores. You also require that to support your staff, support your employees at home, at your offices, or any other person who may be in a financial dire strait, maybe wanting some, advance from you. How did that business happen? That business happened like any other business. But unlike a wholesaler or retailer, which focus on volumes, the business of law, especially when I'm only talking of chamber practice, you have to establish yourself as a marketable brand. That will only happen once you know what you're doing and you know your stuff inside out. You have to be aware of the law, the judgments which are coming on a day-to-day basis. So all these things are there, because when a client comes to you with a different expectation. So let's say if today you have a query and you are my client, let's say I'm just giving an illustration, and you say, look, I want to engage you, I have a matrimonial dispute or I have a commercial dispute or criminal matter, whatever it may be. And I say, look, my fees is X. So fees can be decided in 2-3 parameters. Either I can charge you on a lump sum basis, or I can charge you on an hourly billable hour rates, what law firms do. Or I can say, look, I can charge you on a retainer basis for a year or on a month-to-month basis. So you will have to see how you make money. And there is nothing wrong in making money, because we are all here to also make our household runs. I'm not saying, be greedy, but be pragmatic. And, businesses run on pragmatism. They also run on greed, but you should be pragmatic about how to, do things, and don't become greedy. Because as our wiser generation has told us, people who have been in the profession for about 30, 40 odd years, they said, look, money will come. You have to develop a skill. And that skill set is not just about honing a skill as a lawyer. You should also know to, not run after bad money. If a client is not paying you, if you have raised an invoice and the person is being, dilly-dallying about it, let go of them. You should know how to write off your bad bills. So, and that only comes with experience. So that takes time, and businesses are not run on day one. And that's why I say that law schools must teach this concept of business of law, which I think is by far missing in law schools. Because even when interns come to my chamber, I often ask them, what are you? Are you an asset or a liability?
Right. Interesting. So thank you so much for being on the show today. And to my viewers here, you can contact Sir on LinkedIn and follow him on his Instagram. And also, Sir, I just would, anything that you would like to say at the end to either Law Talkie or to the students who are watching our show today?
I think, it's a wonderful initiative to Law Talkies, and to all your team members. I know not all of them are visible, but I know a lot of teamwork goes behind making any program successful. I as a lawyer work with my team. So, my lawyers, my colleagues, my interns may not be seen with me right now. But as I say, I am what I am because of a lot of their support, a lot of support of people who I can't just put before the screen right now. So, be helpful to people. I think it's important. Be there for people when they need you. Help as many as possible, because, I can't talk about previous life or life to be, but we have just one life, as people say. And the life that you're living with should be worth living. So help people. Don't be hesitant. I don't think you will lose anything by helping people.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for coming here. And thank you so much, everyone, for watching us today. You can subscribe to our channel and you can follow us on our social media. And let's see you next time again on Law Talkie. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.